Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Lockdown Live show. And today I'm chatting to an interesting guy called Jan Pedersen. Jan is from Sweden, and he's an amazing photographer. He's also an Olympus ambassador and visionary and all those kind of cool things. And he travels all over the world shooting amazing wildlife and so forth. So, yeah, I think let's get Jan to come in on the chat and see where this goes. Jan has got some really cool images he wants to come and show us. Yeah, looking forward to this one.
Hello.
Hi, Jan.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm good. Good for seeing you.
The same.
Yeah. How's things in Sweden?
I think we are. How would you say? We are in the ramp light of the world because of the different COVID-19 approach here. So it's a lot of discussion going on in the world whether Sweden is doing the right thing or the wrong thing, or they're genius, or they're just a very how do you say, arrogant towards their citizens. So there are different opinions about that.
And you, how have you been during this whole episode going on? What have you been up to and all those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of engagements. I should have been in southern India and northern India, and on the way to the Shetland Islands. I should have participated on the biggest photo fair in Sweden, giving various talks and workshops. Everything canceled. So you have to find a new way in all of it. So what I'm doing now is I'm teaching online, doing a lot of photography at home, which I haven't done for years. So I'm actually out every day.
So what are you shooting around the home? Or is it just in the vicinity?
I shoot everything: bugs, insects, critters, flowers, everything. Things I've been missing for years, since I had about 280 travel days a year for many years. So I haven't hardly been home like this.
Okay. Well, that's
I actually bought myself a small mini, how do you say, a small minivan I can sleep in. So now I'm gonna tour around in Sweden as well. So.
But look, I've never been to Sweden, but knowing all the Nordic countries, they are just beautiful scenery in general. So I'm pretty sure Sweden is the same.
Yeah, right now the spring is beautiful. I mean, there's a big diversity. Norway is very dramatic, and lots of fjords and mountains and fjells and dramatic landscape, glaciers and stuff like that. Sweden is a little bit different. It's way bigger, and it's forested a lot, and bigger industries, bigger cities, and no oil like Norway. Finland is mostly lakes and forest, and Denmark is mostly agriculture. So they're quite different, all of them. And then Iceland is Iceland, Viking country.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what is? Can you maybe tell us a little bit about your history? Where were you? Obviously born in Sweden, and
no, I'm actually born in Denmark. I moved to Sweden when I was about 30 years old, and simply because there was more nature here, and people in Sweden were more into nature. There was a lot of how do you say, field biologists roaming around. I got lots of friends that were naturalists, and nature photography was way bigger in Sweden than in Denmark. So you could say I actually moved here, and I had a girlfriend here as well. So that was the reason.
How did you get into your photography? How did you start with that?
Yeah, I'm all, what you say, self-learned, self-made. I did university and studied, how do you say, media and science about media, how media works, and especially videos and written medias as well. But photography was just a hobby to start with. But I photographed a lot, and I experimented a lot, and so I got on with it and started to sell my first images in Sweden, and that gave me more energy, and I started to exploit it much more. And I went on with my first project, 1996. I went on to photograph the Arabian deserts. So I made 17 expeditions at that time, and it ended in 2002, 2003, just before the first Kuwait War. But during 5-6 years, I was actually living in desert with Bedouins, riding camel as I drive my Volvo, more or less. So it was a big experience to start with a real heavy project and get into it and write articles and write books and try to maintain yourself on that project and make yourself a photographic profile. So that I learned a lot from that.
But that kind of job that you did, was that purely for yourself, or did you do it for a client, or did
I actually went to the biggest newspaper in Sweden, the absolutely #1 biggest newspaper, after I went on my first trip to collect material. And so I thought I had quite good material from southern Jordan, where I went with the young Bedouin for weeks out in the desert and even did some very, very dangerous stuff. And but he knew his way around. So when I came home, I had a good material. So I went up to the newspaper, I put my foot in the door like Jehovah's Witness. And I said, okay, here I am. I don't leave before you have a look at it. No, we don't have time. After 5 minutes, he asked me, how much do you want for it? So at that time, you got very well paid for jobs like that. I think I got about what can it be? 130,000 Rand for my first job. So that was not bad. So it's different today. It's other times today. So yeah.
But social media has made that kind of stuff difficult to do.
Oh yeah. Later on, I became a part owner of the biggest Swedish nature picture agency, and we had a few good years until this thing called royalty free entered the market. And when it did that, it blew away all the ground under our feet, and we just had to pack in and sell the agency after a couple of years. So I started to teach a lot of photography. I still had a job. I was actually a picture image editor of one of the biggest publishing houses in Sweden for quite a lot of years. So after 16 years, I packed my stuff there. It was difficult to sit in office every day, and so I became a full-time photographer.
So you basically had a stock photo agency in Sweden a couple of years back.
Yeah. I was one of 5 owners.
Okay, but you say that obviously the royalty-free market really hurt your company. But what is your point of view on stock photos for in 2020?
It is a lot of mainstream images. I mean, today photography is easier than before. I mean, when I did my Arabian project, you actually had to carry film. And you carried 200 rolls of films that had to last for a 2 or 3 week expedition. So you really had to be very careful with each shot, and you had to know your techniques to the bottom and everything, because you couldn't afford to miss out on anything. Today is much easier. You can take loads of images and you can experiment much more. And that also makes the equipment is cheaper than before. I mean, at 300 2.8, f2.8 was very expensive before. Now it's every man's or every woman's, how do you say, toy nowadays, or work tool. So nowadays we're up to 600, 800, whatever it is. It's changed a lot. So royalty free has a lot of photographers, I think they just wanted to be published or get a little compensation. So they actually killed the market for people who were living of stock photography.
I do quite a bit of stock photography, and well, you know the Rand situation in South Africa.
Oh yeah, geez.
At the moment, it's a really good income for me, especially during these times, because it's the only thing that's still selling is my stock photos. And I know that there's guys out there that make a really, really good income from their stock photos every month, and it's all royalty-free stuff. But like you say, it's mostly mainstream people, those kind of things.
But you have to be diligent, and you have to pump in your images in the system, and you have to find that nerve, just those images that are selling. When you tap into that, I think you can be successful. But you have to be on your toes, producing quite a lot, I think. my old colleagues from our nature picture agency nowadays, they do other jobs. They live totally. That was their full-time job to be stock agency photographer, but they can't live of it anymore. So it's different today.
Yeah, obviously with a dollar versus euro and dollar versus rand, it's completely different. So if I sell $500 worth of images a month, it's good for me in South Africa, but in Europe it's not that good. It's like a little pocket money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As you know, different from South Africa, we have a huge tax here. So I mean, they're taxating us until we bleed here. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So right after that, you started going onto your own. So, and then how did you get into doing the photography tours and stuff? Because
one of my ways of getting around in the world was that I was actually tour leader for one of the biggest company in Scandinavia. And after an initial 1 or 2 years, they were ready to send me everywhere. So I was very fortunate to travel around the world in places that people only can dream about, and taking, expedition-like tours, hiking tours. I only took tours with a nature content. So during that years, I went to the Galapagos Islands 8 times, Kruger National Park 22 times, India 15, 16 times, Nepal the same. I mean, loads of stuff. So I spent 3 entire summers on the Shetland Isles in northern Scotland. They sent me to Greenland, and I went to work for other companies. So I even went into Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Mongolia, those very far away destinations. So a couple of years ago, when I wanted to do more photography stuff, I teamed up with a guy I was doing a book with at that time, and we actually started a nature photography tour operating agency. So, and that has been one of my main incomes the last couple of years as well.
And who's your main clients? Is it mostly Swedish people, or is it?
These are Swedish people, but we also have clients in Finland, Norway, and Denmark, and even in the UK. And now we're getting some American clients for some unique products that we have. But it's always, even if you put yourself online with that, it's difficult to get clients. You need to have a base. And I've been teaching photography for years, for nearly 20 years, in various summer schools for adults, in schools, evening schools and classes and distance. So, and many of the clients that went with me on other tours, they like to photograph, so they wanted to try this. So we had a very good start on it, we can say.
Okay. Right. So I know that you want to talk about some of your photos. So what have you got there for us?
Okay, let me try to link it up, because my it's actually went out of my system here. So let's see. I'm trying to get my trying to find here my. I need to share my screen in order to for us to look at it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes. Let's see here. So that was a little better. Just need to find my file. It went away. That's kind of fuck up that happens. Keep on talking, Dewald, and I'll try to find it.
When was the last time you were in South Africa? I met you. When was it? Almost 2 years.
I had an apartment in Cape Town for a year. I rented just in front of the rugby stadium, and I left it in April last year.
Okay.
So, and that how do you say that was a very good time. I did a lot of photography at that time. So and that was really something that I enjoyed. I love South Africa with all its good and bad things.
Like you said, you've been here a good couple of times. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I did Kruger National Park 22 times, and I've also I also did a lot of Kalahari and toured around in Zulu Natal and along the Eastern Cape and so on, and Namaqualand and lots of other stuff. I'm actually ready now if you want to see some slides.
Oh, when you're ready, you can go.
Let me try to share the screen first.
Okay.
Like that. And it will come up very soon now here. You should be able to see my screen here now.
Got that.
Yeah, have you got it?
Got it.
Yes. So I just want to make a very short introduction to myself as a photographer, because I've been going through various stages in photography. And one of the breakthrough came for me a couple of years ago when I won one of the biggest nature photo competitions, international ones, just with this image here. And this is from Costa Rica. It's a quetzal flying off from it. It's taken about 30 to 35 meters above the rainforest floor in the trees. I'm hanging on a small bridge and it's moving for the wind and so. And I actually waited for quite a long time before it flew off. That was the time of the Nikon D4. And it didn't have the best autofocus system in the world. So
but with that, so you were suspended above the floor. How long did they pull you up to the top and let you sit there? And
no, that was what is called a hanging bridge.
Okay.
A hanging bridge, and you know, a hanging bridge is very unstable. It moves constantly. And I was there with a D4 and a 500, holding it freehand, just waiting for that bird to take off from the branch, because I knew that when it took off, it would fly to the right, and I could get a shot that I've been dreaming about for years. This was actually a bird that I already knew from my childhood. So this was for me the #1 bird. I spent quite a lot of days before trying to get close to them. So I couldn't believe my luck when I had this in eye height in the rainforest roof. So, and you know, you stand and you wait, and as soon as your arms get tired and you lower the camera, it will fly off.
Yes.
Yes. That's typical. That's Murphy's law. So it would do that. But I stood my ground and I had cramp in my arms, legs shivering, and it took off and I got 3 shots, and the #2 was the one that was there.
If I may ask, I know that you do quite a bit of editing on your images. Just roughly, what type of editing did you do on this image to make the bird stand out like that?
Very, very little. I actually, how do you say, put a little more intensity, intense light just on the bird, just to lift, nothing else. No alteration of colors or anything. But you know, also when you shoot in RAW, and especially before when you had a low pass filter in front of the sensor,
yes,
the RAW images turns out quite gray and dull and very contrastless. So you actually have to enhance it with contrast and intensity and a little modified saturation.
This is absolutely.
We can move on to the next, because I switched very when I started to photograph as a full-time photographer. I actually specialized on rainforest. I went into that quite early, so that's my main subject. It's been for years now. So I try to travel to rainforest as much as I can. This is a small needle-tailed hummingbird. I guess it's not more than what can it weigh? A couple of grams. It's actually one of the smallest birds in the Central America. And this one comes up to inspect me while I'm photographing other birds. I just managed to swing around my camera and shoot it here with a diffused flash also. You can't see the flashlight, but it's very diffused. So
okay. On that subject of using flash for wildlife, do you have one of those extenders that you put on your flash to make the light?
Yes, that's done with an extender. Correct.
Okay. And how useful is it for shooting wildlife? Because I know a lot of people.
It's very difficult. I can say that when you are in rainforest and you have your subjects or objects about 35, 45 meters above the rainforest floor, the light will often be very hard and harsh. So I left extenders totally. I don't use them anymore. But I will tell you some of my other techniques when we get on a little later in the images. But this was done. But when you use flash and extender, you actually have to you have to minimize your flashlight a lot, not full flash. You have to really, how do you say,
Dial it down.
yeah, you have to dial it down a lot, loads of it, even on the camera and even on the flash itself.
Okay, so you wouldn't shoot TTL in a case like this. You would set it completely manual.
Yeah, I vary between TTL and manual. It depends on the motive and the background. So
Okay.
yeah, we can
Absolutely stunning.
I got a lot of funny stories also, because this one here was shot in Ecuador.
Yeah.
And it is a pit viper. I like images that have sort of a softness into them, and that is it's a contrast between sharp and non-sharp. I love a lot that how do you say, how that
Depth of field.
yeah, contradiction between sharp and non-sharp. So I use a lot of unsharp foreground. That is I love to shoot through foliage or leaves or grass or whatever it is.
And it also gives it a more natural look. It will look like you're a viewer that's looking at something through. Yeah.
Exactly. And this has a funny story, because this is shot in Ecuador in a fantastic nature reserve, a private nature reserve. And the guy there, it was my first specimen of that snake. He said, okay, this is an eyelash pit viper. And those eyelash pit vipers are quite docile. So I dived into it with my 105 macro at that time, Nikon macro. I dived into it as good as I could, but it looks very fierce. And I put it up on Facebook, and I got an answer very quickly from a herpetologist in Ecuador. And they are a group of herpetologists that are very, very good photographers, extremely good. And they are, and he corrected me. No, this is a Botrops pit viper, and this is or Botrops lens head. It is a pit viper that is very aggressive. So I was not many centimeters from it. So it's called Orson's pit viper or Orson's lens head, and it's very rare. So he wanted to know where I took the image, and how did we find it, and so on and so on. And it's very closely related to another pit viper, the feather lance, which is a very aggressive and causes a lot of incidents in Latin America every year. So
yeah, the pit vipers are beautiful. I had a friend of mine in Cape Town who used to keep exotic snakes, and he had a I don't know, I think it was a red-lipped viper he had, and he showed it to me. It was an absolutely beautiful snake, and he said to me, the strike on that thing is so fast you won't be able to see it with your eyes.
Yeah.
You need to be very careful with these things. Yeah.
I learned my lesson also, because normally I'm very well prepared, and I do a lot of study into the various species of birds or herbs or mammals or whatever insects that are in the area. So and I was myself totally assured that this was a eyelash pit viper, but it wasn't. So I won't do that again, I can tell you. Actually, during the same stay in that reserve, we came upon an ocelot. And I was out for another pit viper, and I didn't bring my longest lens, but fortunately we had good luck, and he didn't seem to care much about us. So ocelot is very, very difficult to get close to, and that is those images I'm showing now. That they are quite old images, and they were before I changed a little style and I changed equipment and everything. But we will get to that.
But I can see that cat was shot with a slower shutter and with a flash as well.
Yeah. It is also a technique I love. Slow shutter speed, flash together. So you actually get a movement within the image. So you don't freeze it totally.
Was that shot on the first curtain or second curtain flash? It looks almost like it could have been second curtain.
It's a second curtain flash, exactly.
Okay.
And I try here to minimize the flash a lot. And I even had a guide with me, and he was holding a torch as well. So there are a lot on two sides from it. The next one here is a pygmy elephant from Borneo. I love this kind of very close up with wide angle, and I can tell you I'm not many meters from that bull elephant, and it's also done here with a flash as well.
Yep.
Without burning out everything, and I love the blue background as well. I have enhanced the blue background a little, but it was blue from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, but you want to know how I got that close? Or
please share. Was it by accident?
No, I'm actually sitting in a boat. So
okay.
This is just by the riverbank, and I'm quite safe. It won't jump on me on the boat. So that was a very lucky incident as well.
Awesome.
They're very difficult to get rare, and it's very difficult to shoot them with a wide angle. So yeah. The next is also a wide angle shot. This is a marine iguana from the Galapagos Islands. So again, and the volcano behind is one of the biggest volcanoes in the world. So on the island of Isabella. If we take you might think that I only shoot in warm countries, but I've been doing a lot of cold photography as well.
Do you do any underwater stuff? Because those marine iguanas must make amazing underwater images.
Yeah, I do underwater stuff, and I'll get to that a little later. So,
okay.
But I'm a Scandinavian, and before I cope better with cold than with heat, but now it's the other way around. I freeze when I'm home, and I find myself very well when I'm in rainforest. It's 36 degrees and 80 to 90% humidity. That's my environment nowadays. So this is a Stella seagull from the Okhotsk Sea in northern Japan on the border to Russia. I went there just to shoot winter animals a couple of years. We were a bunch of photographers. Pro photographers going together. That was quite fun. So,
and I believe Japan is also a fantastic photography destination. Yet it's
it is, especially the northern island Hokkaido when it's winter time.
It's not that popular yet as a destination versus places like Iceland and Patagonia. And
no, not for the Western world, but I can tell you for Taiwanese, for Chinese, for Indian photographers, for Vietnamese photographers, they all go to Japan in wintertime. And we have that destination in our program, and it's difficult for us to get accommodation nowadays because the Chinese groups are pouring in. So
and if I may ask, if you want to do a trip like that to Japan, what kind of cost are you looking at? On that side?
Without airfare, the cost would be about 60,000 rand, between 50 and 60,000 rand, something like that.
And that includes all the food and
everything.
It's in the grand scheme of things, it's not that expensive versus some of that.
No, it's not, and that is our tour because we are producing it ourselves. And we are doing everything. We even drive the minivan ourselves and everything. So we had big success with this tour, and quite a load of photographers from other countries as well. So we've been very successful with that.
Fantastic.
To get back to it, I love this kind when you can actually do things you're not used to. I use a flash here as well, and the flash actually lights up the snowflakes when they fall. Those close to the lens gets very big, of course, and those farther away get very small. So that is done with a flash extender here as well. So
stunning.
Yeah, it is a Stella seagull, the biggest seagull in the world. It's huge. It's huge. It makes the black eagle look small in come.
What do they eat there?
They eat mostly fish, seabirds, and so. And they are wintering in the Okhotsk Sea in the pack ice. It's the most southerly pack ice, just because the fishermen used to toss away leftovers from their catches before. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We'll move to the next one here. I worked for many years on a book about the Scandinavian nature. is called the Wild North, and we actually got a National Geographic support for that project. So this is taken on Svalbard islands of archipelago Svalbard, Norway, up in the North Atlantic Sea, in the polar area. And the thing is that, okay, to see a polar bear is one thing, to shoot it is another thing. Most people, they sit in summertime or autumn time, and they sit in a Zodiac and take it from there. But this is shot from the sea ice, frozen sea ice, and I'm lying on the sea ice about 120 meter away from the bears. And it's very dangerous to get out in that sea ice with ski-doos, because you can easily go through and then you will drown. But we had a very professional guide that knew how to do it, and I didn't need to worry about the money because National Geographic was paying. So
Okay, okay, can I ask you something about the National Geographic stuff? How would be like myself, if I've got a project in mind, how do you go about pitching that to National Geographic and let them?
They actually have how do you say, scholarships for projects, and they are divided into regions in the world. So I think there would be a region for Africa. There was a region for Scandinavia and Northern Europe. And you have to present your project in all terms. There's a lot of paperwork to do. What is your aim with the project, and how do you think to finance it yourself also, and how are you going to publish it? And yeah, they're going to ask you a lot, and it's very few that are selected to, and they are very often looking for new approaches as well. So if you want to do something on lions or leopards, it will be very difficult. And photography projects are very difficult. It has to have, what do you say, a communication aspect. If you have a communication aspect in it, that you want to do exhibitions and talks and tours and work on it in social medias, then you stand a bigger chance to get a scholarship there.
There is still something about leopards in South Africa that has not been done yet.
Oh, yeah. We can say about everything. There's a lot of things that hasn't been done yet. So.
Yeah, well, this one is right here on our doorstep, and there's nobody that has done it yet. And I've always said, if I've got 6 months to a year that I have to work for any money, and I've got time and my kids is out of the school, that's what I'm going to do. It's to photograph the Cape leopards.
Yeah.
Not using a camera trap. I want to photograph them where I look through the viewfinder at the cats. And there's been some people that's been lucky with cell phone photos, but nobody that's actually gone out and properly photographed them.
No.
Yeah, so
it takes a lot of patience to do that kind of thing and stuff, and you need to know exactly the moveabouts of the animals and the area and everything. So I can tell you about this shot is very special because these are actually mating polar bears, and you can see the exhale from the animals make that kind of looks like smoke in the air. And it is the first night in May when the midsummer sun is up, when the sun doesn't go under the horizon. So it's the first night of the midsummer sun. And this was a situation, we saw it on long distance, and I asked the guy to get us down there and to get us, so we had backlight. And we had 3-4 ski-doos, and it was quite an expedition, and he had to jump off the ski-doo every 100 meters to drill through the ice to see it was thick enough. And I thought all the time, when we get there, this is gone, the motive, the scene is gone, everything is gone. But it wasn't, so we were very lucky. I can tell you, when I took my first shots, my hands were actually trembling a lot. So I went on a much higher ISO than I would do normally, and a much higher f-stop than I would do, and this time just to get the images. And
yeah, it's I don't think there's many other things in life that will give you such a rush than being
no.
of a scene like this, and you know that one of the very few people who's got that photo.
And I went through the guide in advance how I wanted the image. My original image, my idea was to get a polar bear walking on the ice and all blue light, all blue. And we got that as well. But I had to instruct him a lot how I wanted. I wanted to get down low in perspective as much as I could. I wouldn't shoot. I won't shoot it from above. I want to have that feeling that you are in level with it. And actually, when they stopped to mate, the male jumped off, and the female came straight towards us. So we had to jump on the ski-doos and be ready to go very fast, because they are actually very fast on 100 meters.
Yeah. So did you sit on the back of a ski-doo and with a driver, and you?
Oh no, I had my own ski-doo. So, but she went behind a big ice mountain. And she actually went up on top of these, so I got a lot of shot from that moment. But we couldn't get off the ski-doos again, and then the male followed her. So, but in this situation here, I'm actually lying on the ice on my stomach, not freezing.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, and when you work for, they want you to hold up the flag, and so that, and you have to do blogs and posts about it. So they actually send a flag with you, so that you can.
Okay.
Yeah. I was a Nikon shooter before, and it was a lot of heavy gear to haul around, and especially when traveling, that was the biggest problem.
Yes.
Because I had a lot of harassment during the various check-ins and security controls and stuff like that. So a couple of years, 2017, I swapped to Olympus, and the equipment became much smaller. I had a lot of, second thoughts about it. I was worried about the ISO for rainforest photography, where I often would need from 5 to 10,000 ISO. I was worried about the autofocus system, but I went into it, and I made a couple of tours where I left my Nikon gear at home and only went with Olympus, and I was amazed about the results. So,
yeah.
When the new one is out now, the new OM1 Mark III, I've been doing promotion tours for Olympus for that camera, and I can say that it's really it has everything I need, at least. So the images I show from now on are only Olympus images now. So
I've shot with the EM1 Mark II, and it's an amazing camera. The only it was when you're shooting with long lenses, it doesn't give you a very nice background blur. But if you close up like this, it's fine. It's just not a tool. It's
you have to be very wary about the background all the time, and that also makes your sort of selection much more narrow of the motives, and you tend to, how do you say, you tend to shoot in circumstances that before you would shoot what I call half circumstances. It would be okay. It wouldn't be a super shot, but it would be okay. These situations I'm avoiding today. So
yeah,
this year is about 1 year old. So it's shot with the EM, the big one, the M1X, that came about 1.5 years ago, and this is actually from Thailand. I was sitting in a hide with Thailand photographers. This is a small kingfisher, and it took a lizard, and it's been diving through the forest floor foliage. So it's actually been penetrating some dry leaves and sits around it like a jacket. So that's quite funny. It could still fly around with it. I tend to shoot more and more what I call not so strict imagining shots, more like dreamy shots. Here is a big rhinoceros hornbill from Borneo. Sometimes you get very good circumstances when you have like a parrot snake here in Costa Rica. Very good light, and again the background is fantastic.
And you're lucky because there's a lot of bounce coming up from that leaf.
Oh yeah, that was a super situation. And if you wait, the key into all wildlife photography is try to anticipate what will happen. Where do you want the optimal shot to be, and then be prepared for it. And for me, it was a little further in, and it ventured a little out, and I thought if I could just get it there, I will be happy. And it actually got out there, and it surveyed us. I had a group with me, so they got also shots. But the thing is that you can see the body through the leaf.
Yes.
I still work on my hummingbird shots. These here are very fresh. They are from March, from Costa Rica.
Okay.
So the new Olympus has a very good autofocus system nowadays. They are all the one to the left is shot on freehand, and the other one to the right on tripod. The other one, the one to the right, is a setup. So I got control and everything. But on the left is a freehand, in and out of a flower, and the autofocus needs to follow.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. If you do set up shots for these kind of birds.
Yeah, I do setups, but I tend to shoot less and less setups because you have to be very careful for it not to look too artificial.
Yes.
I do a lot of classes where I teach landscape photography, and I experiment a lot. The one to the left is actually from the end of March, when the light is breaking through in the forest. This is a shot about 3 kilometers from my home. And that day, where I was listening to some music that tried to, how do you say, evoke the roots of the Viking age. So I had that Viking mood in me when I went out, about the Asa believing and the special tree from that time. And the light just broke through, and I got my shot. The other one to the right is from the Shetland Islands last summer, on Midsummer Day, the day when the sun is out at the longest, so say, or the highest. And that is a double shot. That's a multiple exposure, 2 exposures. One at the scenery, and the second up in the sky with the clouds and the sun. And then I try to place it in on the right side.
Okay.
This kind of photography is very big in Scandinavia. It's getting less and less documentary and more artistic here.
That's awesome.
Just to tell a little what I like with the Olympus system is actually these 2 images here are shot, both of them, with the 300 with a 2 times extender. That makes a 1200 in full frame, 1200 millimeter. And the one to the left is a shot on a 1/8 of a second, and the one to the right 1/10 of a second, handheld.
Yeah, it's because of that amazing stabilization in the lens.
It's got an amazing stabilizer. I'm selling off all my tripods. I'm only keeping one small. So, but when I was the left one, that is a big owl from India, and it's kind of an eagle owl. And the Indian photographers with me in the car, they actually had to pack down the gear because it was just half an hour before dark. It was dark. Night set in. The other one to the right is from Costa Rica, both of them from this year. So I'm amazed about it. The stabilizing system is awesome. That's, people always ask me, why did you change? This is one of the reasons.
Yeah, that'll be one of the. If I do switch to Olympus ever, it will be for the image stabilization. But to see what the new cameras are doing. The new Canon cameras with the in-body should be also very good.
Oh yeah, everybody else is trying now to pick up on that point, but some of those mirrorless that have been out for years, they have still a little advantage because they've just been refining their techniques. This is also a thing that I'm to the left is from the mountain rainforest, 2,600 meters above sea level. That's where the quetzal is living, the first bird I showed. And the camera can do what you call a sensor shift technique. So you can take a 50 megapixel freehand or an 80 megapixel image on tripod, and it moves it moves the sensor. So you're actually getting what is it called, a high resolution image out of it. The one to the right image, that's just a small part of the image to the left that you can see. That's
Yes.
my friend Pablo. You can actually see the leaf nerves on the leaves in front of him. That's amazing.
Does it output a raw file or a DNG file by now? Because back then on the Mark II, it was only a JPEG.
Yeah, no, you get a raw file, and you even get a compressed raw file. So you get 2 raw files nowadays. So
okay. And one of the issues it's fine if you're shooting static subjects, but the problem is when you start shooting things like seascapes where there's moving items in the image.
Yeah, but I tell you, Dewald, I think we are only a few years away from that being a possibility as well. And actually, the new 80 megapixel high resolution, you can actually shoot moving water as well. That will stitch them together nicely.
I would love to see that.
Yeah. There it is, and the next one shows that it has a very interesting technique. That's also a hummingbird from a March. And when I shoot hummingbirds, you may have noticed, I don't like that the wings are frozen. This is the American technique. They want everything frozen and artificial backgrounds and so. And I was asked many years ago to do an article for one of the, how do you say, popular scientific magazines that they sell. Popular Science, it's called, just about hummingbirds. So I studied all the hummingbird images on the market, and I decided to try to give the images a sense of blur on the wings, so you feel it kind of motion from the bird side. They actually move the wings 60 times in a second. But I was shooting against the light, and so I had I had too much light. I couldn't get down in time, whatever I did. So the camera has a built-in ND filter. So I put that ND filter on 4 stops down, and I got my slow shutter time I wanted. Normally you use that ND filter when you want the water to be very fluent and look like smooth silk, and you want the exposure time to be very slow. But you can
on the newest, so the Mark II didn't have that feature in yet.
No, the big one, M1X, and the new Mark III has that feature, both of them. Yeah. This is also from March. The autofocus system is great. I love that autofocus system. Actually, when you shoot in night, you put a small LED light on it, and then you close the light and you take your shot. And the autofocus has then to take it in the dark, and it does it quite well, I think. This is not even cropped, this image. This is uncropped. This is something I'm actually I'm studying into it, and it is on my list. I know you are very good at this, Dewald. The night sky and the nebulosas and everything, and you've got great conditions in South Africa for it. So I'm looking forward to team up with you on that on a visit in the near future.
We must definitely do that.
Yeah, the new one has something called Starry Sky Autofocus. I thought it was just something out of a joke until I tried it. So this is a runic stone from the Viking Age.
Yeah.
And you can see the Great Dipper, the formation of the Great Dipper just above the runic stone. And when I shoot, it's totally dark. So the autofocus makes focus on the stars itself. And I don't know how it does that. And then I just put my son just put a fragment of a second flashlight on the runic stone.
And the foreground, how is it in focus versus the stars?
Yeah, it actually takes the stars. It can do 2 modes. You can do it by hand or by tripod. If you do it by hand, it has something it called speed priority. You don't get the best quality out of it, but you can see this is actually on 8 seconds.
Yes.
It's hold 8 seconds without any tripod. The next one is with a tripod, and now we are down to 13 seconds. You can still see the Great Dipper up there. The amazing thing now is that this is shot with an 8mm fisheye. And so the stars aren't big, and it still does the focus very well on them, as you can see in the next image here. And when you look very closely in the handle of the Great Dipper, there is a double star right in the middle. And it actually, and this is huge magnification now. So I was amazed. So I'm gonna come down to South Africa and do a lot of star photography.
Can you use this function together with the 80 megapixel sensor shift?
I don't know. I think you can. I haven't tried that, but I'm not sure. And it's definitely something I will look into, if you can do that.
Because that will do.
That will be a groundbreaker.
Yeah.
And something also I like, it's got face priority. It can follow faces even on Capucine monkey here from March. And you can actually do them in profile, which only Sony can do nowadays.
What do you mean about profile?
Yeah, when a person is normally face detection on humans, you can decide if you want the focus on the left eye, on the right eye, on both eyes. But as soon as they turn and you have the person in profile, it cannot do the autofocus, face autofocus anymore. Sony can do that, but the new Olympus can do that as well. So amazing. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of wide angle. There's a new lens I just got in love with, 1245 with a focal close distance on 12 centimeter. So that actually gives me the possibility to shoot this frog here in March, beginning of April, on a one-leg tripod. And I'm directing the camera with my smartphone. There is an app where I can put focus, exposure time, shutter time, and the f-stop, and I can do plus or minus or change ISO and everything. And I can change focus just by pointing on my smartphone screen. So here's another function I use a lot these days. This is called focus stacking.
Okay, interesting.
You can do 15 images where the focus is, you can then decide if you want how big interval between each focus, especially for macro. So it will then move, it will shift the focus 15 times and add all those images together to one picture.
Also in RAW.
Yeah, the outcome you will get from the camera is JPEG, but the 15 images you will get in RAW. So if you're not satisfied with the JPEG, you can use Photoshop or Serene Stacker, just a stacking program, very good, to stack them together yourself. This is actually one JPEG file. I had to do very little on it, so it was fine from the beginning.
Awesome. Now that's something I've not done.
Normally you need a tripod for this. You cannot do this without a tripod, and this is handheld. So,
and at what frame rate does it shoot those 15 images?
It is just what can I say? It is it just take a few seconds, and they are all put together, and the camera works then to stitch them together.
Because I know the Olympus always had a very, very fast shutter. So if you can hold the camera, press the button, does it go?
Yeah, it does. I think it uses an electronic shot. It uses the electronic shutter here.
Okay, so it doesn't go click, focus,
click.
No.
No, you press, and it seems like you're doing a normal exposure on 2 second or 1 second time, and then you have all your 15 shots.
Sure, amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. We have spring in Sweden now, so all the insects are coming. So. I just had some tick bites. I had to go to the doctor today because I have Borrelia. It's a bacterial disease they spread. So,
okay.
Yeah. I love these close macro shots also. This is a toad that just came out here in Sweden.
What focal length lens is that?
That's a new 1245 millimeters. That's 12 millimeter.
Stunning.
12 millimeter with a diffused flash. Yeah. Enough of Olympus talk. Let's talk images. I love hummingbirds, and I try to experiment all the time. This here is a shot with a wide angle. And there is a wide angle and a fill flash, and on the second curtain.
The beautiful thing about hummingbirds is that their heads normally stay dead still and the body moves.
Yeah, they do. But when they fly so fast that you really have to have, you have to do many shots to achieve one like this. You have to be prepared for it. But I like the background and I like the clouds and everything. So, it's a lot of experimenting, which is nice. I also like when it gets into high key, like here from the rainforest. It's a small anole lizard. And one of my last shots here on a tour, I went to Vietnam in February to photograph one of the rarest monkeys in the world, the red Chang Duke. There's only a couple of hundreds of them left. So it's actually the first time I spent an entire week on a scooter like you have in China and Vietnam. So I photographed from scooter. This was a nature reserve with very small paths and you could go by scooter. So I scooted in every day and scooted around with my gear. And they were very shy, these monkeys, extremely shy, but very beautiful.
And it was just you by yourself? You didn't have any groups with you, anything like that?
Nope, no groups. So.
Okay, so now I've got a question for you. Have you got any more shots that you want to show?
Yeah, I got a few left here.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's
go. I love wide angle also. This is the the famous II from Madagascar. And here's the next famous one, that is the Fusa, the biggest predator on Madagascar, shot at nighttime also. I always have a lot of, I have a wish list, and the wish list is very long. I got the last year I got two heavy trophies on my wish list. The next one here is the King Cobra.
Okay, that's a young one.
It's a quite young one, yeah. But when you see a King Cobra, you get all exalted. I mean, this shot in Thailand, a very good spot for King Cobras. It's not handheld. I shoot everything in situ. I don't move around animals or anything. I try to catch them or control them or anything. But the next thing is that it actually killed the snake. And the snake, before it died, tried to duck itself into the crevice of the tree, and it actually had to pull out the snake. A lot of work for it. When it got it out, it had then to swallow it. So you had to shift the snake sideways until it got to the head before it could start to swallow it.
And that's what a lot of people don't know, is that king cobras eat other snakes. That's their prime.
It's a prime target. So if you have to look for king cobras, you have to look in environment with a lot of other snakes. So, but that was a beautiful snake. It was a gorgeous snake and not aggressive. When we came out, the guide and me, when we came out from the forest, there was actually signs everywhere. Don't enter this area. It's a big danger because of king cobras. But we didn't see these signs when we entered. So, yeah. Another one on my wish list here was that guy here.
Oh,
it's a black leopard. And there is one black leopard in southern India. It's in the Kabini forest of the Nagahon National Park. I went there a year ago, April last year. And we had it in two occasions, very high up and long, very far away inside the forest. But so I went with my son in January, and we had luck 2 times. I stayed a week, just 2 safaris every day only for this. So it came the last day, the last safari before we had to head back and fly home. Then it came in this gorgeous light. The thing is, we had some Indian nature photographers in our van also, and there were a couple. They came from Bangalore, and this year has been around since 2015, 2016, and they have never seen it. And they came about 5-6 times every year. And there was another photographer. He's seen it a very few times far away, and there was 2 other photographers. They have never seen it either. But everybody knew we had it. The first day, the first safari, we entered on the Monday. This year was on the Sunday, week after. So they said, we are with you lucky guys. I said, no, yeah, but can you please get it for us? Okay, we'll do our best. So we drove along and we were on the way out and I saw this gorgeous light. And I thought, oh shit, imagine if the panther would come here. And I see a black spot and I put my bino on it. Before I can shout, the guide in the car shout, ooh, it's the black panther. And the Indians, they got all crazy. And they got all exalted. So we actually had to scream to them to shut up. and it was a big moment for all of us. And it actually came straight towards us.
Yeah, just look at those eyes.
Yeah. And then it went here and paused in very difficult light situations.
What is your ISO on these shots? Because I know a lot of people that have shot these black leopards, they're normally in very dark or gloomy.
It's difficult light. It's not so difficult light when it comes in the 2 shots before, but you don't want to miss it. So then you crank it up to at least about 1000 ISO or 1200, just to be on your safe side.
And also because the cat is black, it's very difficult to get the exposure correct.
Yeah, it is. But that is the advantage with the mirrorless, because you see the exposure right away.
Yes.
And you can do exposure compensations very easily as well. So, and when you want to do something extraordinary, you can when you think you got your shots, you can try to do as the last one here. You can try to underexposure a lot. Just to get an image like this. This is a technique I love a lot, because here is actually one from my Cape Town apartment. This is the cricket ground or the rugby ground behind. What's that called, that stadium?
Newlands.
In Newlands, yeah. My apartment was just in front of the rugby station. So these are actually the lights from the rugby station. And this Haddad ibis was sitting just outside my front door. So I was just trying to get the lights behind the ibis. So
and they're actually very ugly birds. That harida, we call them harida.
Yeah. But you see, for me as a foreigner, stranger, they're quite common in everywhere, in all gardens and everywhere. But you see, if you would come to Sweden, we would have some very common birds that I would totally overlook, but you would find them very exotic. And it's vice versa, the same there. So
thing with the harida, if you catch it in the correct light, its feathers got a purple green sheen to them.
Yeah, I find it quite an amazing bird to photograph. But for me, it was just the roof of the building and the light. So I was trying to position myself all the time to get the light. So I do a lot of what is called underexposure. And the next one here, that is actually from the Table Mountain National Park. And the plant is called Everlasting Snow. And the technique here is to underexpose a lot and then just to put a very short flash on it.
Yes.
Yeah. That gives that dramatic light.
Do you use any ND filters apart from the ones that's built into the?
No, I don't use any filters at all. I try to get it. What I can do is I will sometime during the shooting session I will work a lot with the what is it called in English? With the kelvins, I would change the Kelvin grade a lot. Just to see, I would try to get it dark, yellow and warm, or little colder and blue, or whatever.
Yeah, the white
balance. The white balance, exactly, white balance. Yeah. So I work a lot with the white balance. A lot of people say, I can do that when I come home. But it's actually when you are photographing that you see your image and you see the result. And that's when you know that you have to compensate in something to get a result in something other.
And also it lowers your editing time as well. I know.
Oh yeah, it does. It does. My mantra when I teach is shit in, shit out. I mean, yes. And do everything you can from the start, and do the photograph in the camera, not in Photoshop or Lightroom afterwards. But I love South Africa. You can see this is a very common motive, down at the southern tip of the Table Mountain National Park. These flowers are everywhere. And I was with a Swedish photographer, and he's, oh wow, there's no picture here. But that's when you have always to think that different or contrast or jumping between light and darkness all the time.
Yep.
I love also when the images goes in a very light mode, like this Karakal from Kalagadi. And then you ask me about underwater. This is overwater, but this was actually from Mossel Bay. I went to Mossel Bay 5-6 times to shoot the white sharks. That is a great place. So, I mean, you're very fortunate in South Africa. So many different biomes, environments, circumstances.
Remember when I met you, you said that you wanted to go down, and I said you must speak to Warren Fleming down in Knysna. Did you ever meet up with Warren?
No, I didn't, but I will definitely do next time. So, and I have a great friend in Hermanos, which is Dave de Beer, and I shoot with him, and we extend a lot of conversations about photography. But I would like to have a wider network in South Africa, definitely.
And the thing with Warren and them, when they shot the sharks in, when was this, 2014, 2015, run about there, is I put them onto the connection that I had. And I've never been able to go down there and photograph the sharks. They went there the one year, and they got amazing shots of the sharks breaching behind the boat.
Oh yeah, I have that as well, and I even have it underwater, and so because I've been giving a lot of talks about nature in South Africa, and so, and we are actually producing a tour for Swedish nature photographers to the Western Cape and Eastern Cape. We have a tour already to the Kalagadi, but we're trying to stay away from the Big Five and do something else. So.
Yeah, there's so many other things to photograph.
Oh, yeah, there are loads of stuff. There's so many reserves. And when the protea flowers, or the orchids on Table Mountain, or the West Coast National Park, or even the Makwaland National Park, it's great. Oh. I just finish off here with a very few images where I sort of pull the limits a lot. I like to experiment a lot, and I like it's always, there is a mantra in bird photography: you always need to keep the bird's eye sharp. But that is not my idea. This is the biggest heron. It's called what's it called? It's got this egret's feather on it, and in the plumage for breeding season, they are lovely, this plumage. So here I'm actually underexposing a lot, and a little a lit torch on it just to get the effect. Yeah. The other one here is from Australia. This is a multi-exposure of 2 images also, and the height images. Yeah. I like to experiment. I like to make some images a little more, how do you say, fantasy or fairy tale like than normally. And I love the low perspective. This here is from the end of March as well. We only got one poisonous snake in Scandinavia. This is the common adder, and he's actually peeping out here. This is 1200 millimeter handheld. So, but the everything is a low perspective in this.
Have you, when you were in South Africa, you didn't photograph any of the snakes that we've got here?
No, you need to hook up with some people that are good in snakes, finding them, because if you are not familiar with the snakes, I'm not a herb specialist. Yeah. So that's always, we always need local knowledge and local people, and you have to give them all the credit because they are great in what they are doing. So.
You know that Louis' daughter was bitten by a Cape Cobra?
Yeah, I saw that, and I even saw the snake inside the plastic box he put up as well. But it didn't puncture.
No. It punctured, but it didn't inject any venom.
She was lucky.
Yeah. Now the guy that he called, that's the local snake catcher. Yeah, he's got he's got beautiful snakes. And obviously when he catches the snakes, when people call him out, he keeps them for a week or so and feeds them and makes sure that they're not sick or injured, and then he releases them again. So he's got access to beautiful puff adders, beautiful Cape Cobras, boomslang, a couple of these that I've spoken to him. I said, I want to photograph the stuff.
I always prefer it in situ, also on spot and location when you find a wild animal. I think half of the joy is the search for it.
Yeah.
And then when you're there, you don't have optimal circumstances, so you might miss out on your great shot. But then if you're persistent enough, sooner or later you will get to it. So, but I've never photographed adder in Sweden before, so this is you can call it a corona side effect, COVID-19 production. Yeah.
It's, well, if you've got somebody like that who's got access to the animals and you can I wouldn't say stage them, but you can get them into good light and I think you could get something really amazing.
Yeah, of course. There are. I also see a lot of very unethical staging nowadays, that people are gluing insects to sticks and freezing spray on them and all that. And that is, according to me, moralistic, not right. You should always take care of your items, the ones that your motives. So I have 2 images left, I think. Yeah, they're also from the spring here. This is a flower we have, a Pulsatilla anemone in Scandinavian. It just flowered 10 days ago, so it's over and done now. In this situation here, it's also a diffused flash and super wide angle and very much underexposure to get the clouds in the sky behind. Beautiful. And then the last one here, and that's not a snake. That is a legless lizard, also shot with wide angle macro. This is also a COVID-19 result. So it's all these images. Yes, they're just 1 or 2 weeks old. So,
well, that's amazing. If especially now that you've got access to beautiful nature places, like we can't go out yet. We can't go into nature. It's only like 3 hours in the morning at this stage.
Yeah.
The most incredible sunsets and sunrises, and we can't go photograph them.
No. I'll stop sharing now. It is frustrating. I mean, we have not had that lockdown thing. So and that is for us. Do you see me now?
Yeah, I see you.
Okay. For us, it's that is what all the discussion is about. We feel we're quite lucky that we actually can go out and we can do stuff. But on the other hand, we had because the virus entered all our old people homes, many of them. So I just read now that out of we have several thousand deaths. I think and more than 90% of them are people above 70. So we have only 400 cases under 70. Yes, because several thousands over 70.
It's about the same here. It's mostly older people and people that had previous complications that is. A question about your photography is that how much of these do you sell currently as prints or fine art pieces?
We are 3 colleagues. We're just setting up a fine art print shop now, and we're doing a catalog of it. And I sell people. I don't sell active. People normally call me and say they want to buy this or that. But I'm going to be much more active on that. I use these images a lot for workshops and talks, and I also use them a lot for how do you say social medias and so, and for books. I'm currently working. I did 15 books until now. I'm working on 3 new ones. So.
And what are the books about?
Books are all about nature and wildlife. It tended to be before more about birds, and so some books have been selling amazingly well. I can show you one book here. Just give me a second to pull it out here. You won't believe it. This here is one book. This is the Danish. This is the Norwegian edit.
Okay.
This is out in 9 languages, and it's sold until now nearly 2 million copies.
Really, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you sell it from Amazon or from?
You can buy that on Amazon. Yeah, you can look my name on Amazon, and you will find loads of titles. So.
And is it all self-published, or do you get a publisher to publish?
No, I work with currently 4 publishing houses, but the new books are being done quite differently. I won't tell too much here, but it has to be new strategies because the book selling thing is going down rapidly. Mm-hmm. And so in order to cope with that, you have to come up with new strategies.
I see that thing's got like a little insert on the side. Is that, do you give something with for the bird calls, or?
No, that insert here, you mean this one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually, when you look here, this is the great spotted woodpecker, and there's a number up here. And so you can press that number on the device, and you can hear the alarm calls and the drumming from the bird. So you can hear those singing as well. So this book here is a sound and image and text together.
In South Africa, I'm pretty sure you've got it in Sweden as well. We've got an app. I haven't got it on my phone. It's
I know that.
Birds with, you can get all the descriptions and you can hear the and everything on there, which is amazing. I had a group of photographers. I was working for a client, and there was a group of photographers that were interested in birds and everything, and they had a phone and they were calling the birds, walking around the gardens, just to see who's responding.
That has been a way for photographers to attract the birds before, but when they are breeding and they hear there is a huge mega bird that never gives up, it can actually scare them away. So it has to be done very, very carefully.
Have you thought about using like animal callers? I know that you get the guys doing jackal hunting and coyotes. They've got a caller with distress signals for.
Yeah, they can do that, and you can actually, for red fox, if there is a small whistle that you can, if you can master it, you can. They think it's a mouse, so they will come close. I don't do that much. I don't do that. I've been doing a few calls in rainforests and stuff for very skulking species, but I work a lot. I studied the object before, and I know what kind of habitat it's in, and I sort of work my way into it. I'm very focused on a few things. So
obviously not when you've got a group of clients with you. When you by yourself.
Yes, but when I have a group of clients, we have, for most tools, we have maximum 8 people, and because if you walk with 8 people in the rainforest, everybody can get in the front if there's something. But we have a competition that have 14 people, and that is impossible. It's also dangerous. Nighttime was a lot of feathered land snakes moving around and stuff.
Yes.
Like that. So for 8 people, it's not my job to photograph. It's my job then to guide them to the good pictures, to the angles, and I find the animals together with local guides and tell them how to do the exposure or how to put themselves if they don't know it already. Some are very good as well, so some are top-notch photographers, some are beginners and learners, so it's quite different. But I dare to say that the most of our clients in Costa Rica, they get to shoot all these things that you think you will shoot, like poison arrow frogs, toucans, howler monkeys, spider monkeys, sloth, all these exotic birds and critters. So
Yeah, and when you've worked in all these rainforest environments, have you been bitten by any funny bugs or stuff like that?
Yeah, I was actually bitten quite a few years in Kruger National Park by a small spider. It sits on the top of the grass, and it bit me right over the knee.
Oh.
And I didn't know what it was. And I think there's one doctor in Kruger in the main camp.
How many years ago was that?
That must have been about 10 years ago, something like that. And I went in there, and he just looked me, you've been bitten by this and this spider. And this thing will happen like this. I got fever, and it got swollen, and it got dark, and it fell off, and the scar looks like there's been a small volcano crater there. That's the only thing. I'm very careful.
I used to know the doctor that was in Kruger back then. My brother-in-law he works at the emergency unit in Nelspruit.
Okay.
So he was friends with Gary, who was the doctor at that stage in Kruger. I'm talking about 2012, 2013 at this stage.
Yeah.
And we went there when we went to visit him in Nelspruit. He took us to Kruger, so we would stay at Gary's house, which was amazing. He had this deck right onto the river.
Yeah.
Fence was the camping area, and we would sit there, and hyenas would come up to the fence and everything. And the first time we were there, Gary said to us, well, everybody went to bed, and we were still sitting by the fire, myself and him, talking nonsense and so on. And he said, can I go show you something? And I said, well, what is it? He says, no, just come with. And we got into his car, and we drove into the park at night. And Kruger, you must have been to Lake Panic before.
Yeah.
We went to Lake Panic at 12 o'clock at night, and we walked down to the hide, and we sat about probably an hour with the hippos coming up right up to the hide, and it was dead quiet, full moon. It was absolutely amazing.
Kruger is a lovely place. I mean, I liked it a lot in the north, in Punta Maria and Xingüetze and Olifants. This was great. There's a lot of Mopane up there, and it's less tourists. So, yeah. Oh yeah, you have good things in South Africa. There is the Great Sardine Run as well, and the mountains. Zulu Natal also. There's a lot to do in South Africa.
Right. So yeah, Jan, I think we should start wrapping this up. It was really cool chatting to you. So it
was the same. Well, nice to see you this way also.
Yeah. Please let me know when you're coming back to South Africa. I would like to meet up and have coffee or beer and go and do some.
Definitely. We also need to do some serious shooting together.
Yeah, we need to go do those quiver trees and stuff.
Yeah, and then I even think if taking a group down there, we need to time it with the best time for the for star photography, for astrophotography as well. So I would be delighted to work with you on that as well.
Actually, now is a good time, but we are shut down.
Yeah. But it will eventually go away, so we hope.
Yeah, it will.
Can I just say a last few words?
Please do. Yeah,
I would just love to say hi to all my friends in South Africa, and also say stay safe, and I hope to be back soon again.
Yeah, definitely. Jan, again, I say thank you for your time. Thank you for coming to have a chat.
Thanks, Dewald. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, and we'll chat on Facebook, and when you come down
we'll
again.
do that. We'll clear that out. Cheers, mate.
Have an awesome evening.
Yes, same to you. Bye.
Bye.